Okay, people. So today I have, or I should go, in the red corner, hailing from parts unknown. It's Scarlet, the big deal Monroe.
What a perfect introduction. Love it.
How are you doing, Scarlet? Thank you for
I'm
your
doing
time.
great. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
No worries, no worries. I mean, yeah, you've got your premiere tomorrow of your
Yes.
new film, right? Little Lucha and the Big Deal.
Yes.
Right. How are the feelings right now?
Very excited. Honestly, I love the festival circuit. It's like my favorite part of making a short film or a film in general. I think a lot of people, it's a love-hate relationship, but I really enjoy it. And yeah, I'm really excited I love seeing something that I've made with an audience, and like especially a fresh audience, because you never know what they're going to react to, what parts they're not going to react to. So it's really nice to watch your work with people who haven't seen it.
Yes, I can definitely see that being a huge draw. Is it sometimes a worry though? Because depending on what time of the day you're screaming and like maybe the block you're screening in, like you know what I mean? Like the audience could be very different.
Totally. Josh, is that you? Yay, Josh is here. We got our co-director. Amazing. To answer that question, it is different. Like I've had short films screen at 11 a.m. and I usually make like genre films. So I've had a horror that screens at 11 a.m., which is really funny and different. Hi. We just
Awesome.
Isn't it weird? It's like switched.
Perfect.
Yay, we made it.
Well, people stepping in as the tag team partner of my life. It's Josh Significant Stifter.
I love it. I love it.
Gosh.
Elvis, sorry, my dog is now very excited. He was just asking us how we're feeling about the premiere tomorrow.
I am feeling good. You know, there's always like a certain element of being nervous and pumped, and it's the first time we're seeing it on a big screen. So like my biggest thing is being nervous that it's technically going to work.
Right.
Like that it's going to look good on the big screen and sound good, and there aren't going to be things that we see and go like, oh, that is grainy and awful, or you know, that kind of stuff. But no, I'm really excited about it.
You can pick him up.
I can't.
My dog is freaking out to see Josh just got here. This is Elvis.
Elvis.
Yes.
Hello, Elvis.
Hello.
During like this, you know, you both had shorts and features. Like in all the festivals and screenings that you've had, has there ever been anything significant that you've noticed about like the cut, you know, in that first viewing?
About say it again,
like the you know what I mean, like right. The first time you screened it on the big screen.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Like that cut that you've sent off, and then suddenly you'll be like, oh no. Like what has been the most significant thing you've seen?
Well, there was one time that Greywood's Plot screened at Fright Fest Film Festival, and the score in the background, or the soundtrack in the background during the credits was doubled up. Oh, no. And it's already a loud song to begin with because it's like a grindcore song, so it was like doubly loud, and I was like, what's happening? But luckily, I had made it through the whole movie with no other issues, so I was like, I'll let that one go, and it already, like, I don't think anyone even would have noticed because it's such a sloppy mess of a song. But usually I just use the film festivals as an opportunity to like watch it with an audience and then tweak it from there. It's like it's a cheap way to do a test screening.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think one time I noticed on the big screen like something in the background of the film that I had never seen before because it's so big and magnified that I was like, oh,
Yeah.
like you can see his face in the reflection or whatever it is, you know, but you let that go because it's mostly you, the director, who's like over analyzing and like over, you know, freaking out about stuff that the audience probably wouldn't notice or think about.
Yeah. I see that.
No, I mean, I've had a lot of them though over the years. Like almost every film festival I come out of with at least a small tweak. I feel like if I don't find something to tweak at the festival, it's like, well, then I'm not utilizing it to its fullest. So, yeah, I really, that's one of the things I like most about festivals.
That's a cool way to think about it. I never think about it like that. I'm like, this is the final cut.
Sometimes I have cool ideas.
I mean, but sometimes with the reaction from the crowd, right? Because they might have seen a particular film beforehand, right? Or, you know, maybe it's a thunderstorm, so everyone got soaked in the queue. You know, like they could be funky and could react to something that another crowd loves.
Oh yeah,
right?
all the
You
time.
might get some
Everyone.
false feedback.
Definitely. There's audiences are always different. I don't
Every
know
single one of them is different.
That's why it's kind of fun for me because some audiences will react some ways and some will react totally differently. And I just, you know, I think as directors, once you've done it a few times, you learn just not to take it personal and to just go with it and like kind of treat them as experiments.
Yeah, it depends on the type of film festival. It depends on the location you're at. Like, you know, Minnesota audience is going to react completely different than Austin, Texas audience. Like they're completely different types of audiences. And, you know, versus, I mean, it goes for any movie. Like I've noticed that people just react different in the theater at Atlanta, where I live now, versus when I used to go to movies in Minnesota, where Minnesota, it's like dead silent through a movie. And in Atlanta, people talk through the movie more, or things will happen and people react a little bit more viscerally and bigger. But you know, I've had reactions like I think that's a perfect example is, you know, Fright Fest. People had seen a ton of horror movies, and then I was like the last day, so it had been like 6 days of horror movies. So the audience in mind was just like dead silent the whole time, completely like withdrawn. And yeah, they were fatigued completely. And then it ended, and everyone was like, "Great movie, I loved it." I'm like, you didn't show it? Like, no, you showed it. But I was okay with it because the reaction was still great afterwards. But it made me realize, like, after 6 days of horror movies, people are just desensitized and have no reaction.
Yeah, I went to Nightmares Film Fest a few years ago with another short, and I felt that way. Like I was watching horror films for 3 days in a row by myself. You know what I mean? And you feel a little bit crazy, and you're like, I don't even know if my reaction right now is like not that it wouldn't be genuine, but if it's like normal for me because I'm in this dark theater for 72 hours. You know?
Yeah, and with short films, it's really weird because like depending on where you fall in the block, you can play completely different than how you want to play. So like, I've definitely seen, we had one short film that played after, it was like a 3-minute short that played after a 20-minute short. And like by the time, and the 20-minute one was like very dramatic and horror-y. And then it got to my silly, stupid one. And the audience was just like so ready to laugh and so ready to be past that everyone, you know, afterwards was just like, thank God that they put yours there because we needed it.
I looked at our block, and I think the movie before us is like 4 minutes long, and I was like, nice.
Yeah.
Like, ours is 14 minutes. So it's a nice balance. And I think programmers are super talented in that way too. They know what they're doing.
Then every once in a while you see a movie that doesn't play quite right, and you're like, oh no, that poor filmmaker. Like I love the short, but it just did not fit in this block.
Totally. Yeah, there's sometimes outliers for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm covering Fantasia International Film Festival at the moment, and they oftentimes will have a short film lead into a feature. Like, so I was curious, you know, going from the block to the lead into a feature, if you have a preference in that, you know, as filmmakers.
You can go.
I like both. Like,
Yeah.
and I purposely, if I ever screen my movies, I put short films from friends before the movies. In fact, we did one in LA for The Good Exorcist. We screened and we put together a whole block where we did like 2 short films or 3 short films, and then The Good Exorcist. I think that that's a great way to, like, especially with independent movies, like it's a great way to get other people out there, kind of build a community and let the audience know, like, this is a community effort in independent film versus just like, come watch my movie.
Yeah. It also feels very like Grindhouse too, which is fun. Like you're showing a bunch of stuff that people aren't expecting, or maybe you show a short and a feature or a bunch of shorts. I don't know. It feels more like exciting not to know. I like both as well.
Yeah, I had a screening for The Good Exorcist that I actually made a short, like a commercial that played before it, because I just like that feeling of like something the audience watches something short and like confined, and then they get into the bigger feature. But I also do really like being in a block with a bunch of shorts, and it kind of makes this little community out of all of the short filmmakers in that moment, and it's always fun for me.
Yeah, it's always an interesting experience, however it comes to you. Just watching just so many different types of films and feels of films. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. Like with this new show, right? 80s wrestling, was a great vibe. I just remember, growing up and watching like WWF, which it was back in the day, Macho Man Randy Savage and all those kind of characters. Like, what was the inspiration for Little Lucha and the Big Deal?
Yeah, so I grew up watching wrestling. Like my family was obsessed, but being a small dude, I was never going to get in the ring. So this was sort of an excuse for me to get in the ring, but I actually wrote it I think it was while our movies, Phaedra and The Good Exorcist, were playing at South by Southwest. And I wrote it with the intention that Scarlet would kind of teach me how to act a little bit, and we would kind of teach each other things that we know. Scarlet had kind of struggled isn't the right word, but the editing process was something she was not used to. And so I had helped her through that. And I'm like, well, maybe we could teach each other different things through a short film. And so I wrote it and I sent her Little Lucha and the Big Deal. And I was like, hey, what do you think of this? And then she did a rewrite on it. And then it sat for like 6 years, something like that. And we both went and made more shorts, more features. We did like a ton of stuff. And then I think it was around the time, it was like right post-COVID, Daniel was like, hey, if you're going to do this project, you always talk about Daniel, who's my producer. He plays Father Gill and Doug Graywoods in my movies. He's been my best friend since kindergarten. He's like, if you're going to do this project, you have to do it now, because you're never going to do it if you don't do it in this moment. And so I was like, okay, you take a pass on the script. So I sent him the script and he rewrote some stuff. And then I sent it to Scarlet. And we were just like, all right, let's go. And that's like the reality of independent filmmaking. At a certain point, you just have to say like, okay, we're going to film in April. Let's do that. Let's pick a date and go.
Yeah. And I think like we both, Josh and I, like when we were on Rebel Without a Crew, that's how we met. Obviously, we both made genre films, and like we knew that we had similar taste and also very different, but very like our filmmaking style really overlaps and like it's very simpatico. It's like really works well together. And so I think wrestling made sense, and and like big characters, big scenes, it just kind of fit for us.
And at the time when we were talking about this, I hadn't really acted at all. And so I kind of think in the back of my head, I was thinking, okay, what kind of acting can I do if I suck? It's still going to be enjoyable to watch. Like it's still, I can go too big or I can be whatever and it would still sell. And you can see right now, I naturally constantly am throwing my arms around. So I'm like, what can I be doing this? And is it going to look like I'm just a lunatic? Or the proper kind of lunatic.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Like, what was the fault about it? You know what I mean? Because you didn't jump on it straight away. Like, was there any particular reason you went to other projects before this one?
You know, I think it kind of naturally just happened for me because like I had Greywood's Plot started, which is a feature film. And after The Good Exorcist, I mean, literally the last day of filming The Good Exorcist, I told Daniel, like, I walked up to him and was like, hey man, you know what we got to do? And he's like, yeah, I know, we got to finish Greywood's Plot now. So that like took over my life for a solid year. And then and COVID, honestly, as well. Like we lost a ton of time. I was working at the news when COVID had, like the local Minnesota news, when COVID happened, George Floyd was murdered in my backyard, basically. And like all of this stuff happened that just consumed my life. And so this was the first time that and then I moved to Atlanta, which took up another year of, you know, you move somewhere across the country and suddenly, you know, it takes a long time to get used to it and get back in the vibe of creating. And I think I got settled in, and I think there was this element of like, Daniel wanted to hang out and film something. I wanted to. We hadn't seen Scarlet for a while, and it just all kind of came together.
Yeah, I don't think we had seen each other for like 3 years when I showed up in Minnesota.
Yeah, it
I was
been
like, hey. But yeah, I agree. I think COVID took, you know, COVID, it was like a time warp. It robbed like 2 years of all of our lives. And then, like Josh, I made another short called Velma right after COVID. Honestly, Velma I made right before the Omicron variant. So it was just a week. We had like a week where it was okay, and then suddenly it wasn't. And I was like, okay, well, we shot this movie in 2 days. And then I was doing the festival circuit for her, and then we were just like, well, you know, we both. Right now, neither of us has a project in pre-production. Like, this is it. Let's go. And I think as filmmakers too, you get used to like writing something and then putting it down for however long it takes to then like make it work. And you realize that that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's like a great thing. In our case, it was because we had time to become better filmmakers, better actors, better, you know, compromisers, I think. And it just really worked.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, sometimes I've had conversations with people and it's just like, oh, how long did it take to do the project? And it's just like, it just took me like 2 days to write it. And then you're waiting for so I put it down for a bit, then I came back to it, made a little polish, boom, boom, boom. And it's just like, no, that was it. And you're just like, huh.
That has never been my experience. Not once has that been my experience. It's like, I mean, the only time it kind of was on The Good Exorcist when I lied to Robert and said that I had a script and didn't actually have a script. And I was just like, can I have 2 weeks to just like make it so it can be made for $7,000? And they were like, oh yeah, 2 weeks. That sounds great. And then I was like, Dan, we got to get writing. And so we wrote the initial script in 2 weeks, and then I showed up to set with like a new script, and they were like, what the hell is this? Like, this is completely different. And I'm like, well, I did a little tweaking over the 3 months you made us wait for the show to pick up.
Yeah, same. One of the requisites was that you had a feature film written and ready to go, and they asked me if I did, and I was like, of course I do.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't have submitted if I didn't.
I had an idea for a feature film, and that's what I went with. So I was like, this is my only idea. I guess I got to make this one.
I got off the phone call and was like, Dan, do you want to be a priest or a clown? Because I didn't want to have to do different costumes every day. I wanted him to have like one costume, one wardrobe that he was in every time, because I wasn't going to follow him around, you know, like making sure he had everything right. So I literally was just like, clown or priest? And he's like, oh, I don't want to put on makeup every morning. And I was like, priest it is.
Like, what does, you know, that's where you both met. So what was it about the experience that kind of brought you two together?
Well, we were on the same schedule, like literally being together, like because
physically.
We were on the reality show and they, you know, everyone had different times. We had these like weird 10-hour shoots that we had to do based on like reality show regulations. And so we ended up being on the same schedule where we would like start at our day one would start at like 7 a.m. and we go till whatever time,
Yeah.
like 7 p.m. And then we slowly would stagger it so we could get night shoots in at the end of the week. So we'd start early and then end late. But we would, like, every day, I think our schedule was a little off because I think I got home earlier every day and I would go make pizza rolls. And so then she would come home and pizza rolls would be ready.
And then pizza rolls and beer, I think, was like our diet.
Pizza rolls and beers. And I'd sit and edit in my room and she'd lay on my bed coughing all over my pillow.
I did get very sick one weekend and I was like, oh, sorry. He definitely got very sick.
And then I got super sick afterwards. I literally ended the last day of the show. They don't even show this, but the last day of the show, I got back to the house after we had wrapped, and literally our producer, like their house mom.
I went with you to the hospital.
No, it was just me. And it was just me and Michelle. Yeah, Michelle and I. She looked at me because she had been gone on a music video shoot for like 3 days, and she looked at me and she was like, "Why is he not at the hospital? Like, we have to take him." I was like, "No, I'm okay."
See, that's why I don't think I gave you whatever it was, because I didn't go to the hospital. So
you should have been at the hospital. You woke up one day like teeth chattering, like in a seizuring. We really went through it on that show. We love it. I'm very grateful for it, but the stress was wild. And the sickness was just something else. I mean, they were like, you have something really bad. We're going to call it bronchitis or you won't be able to continue on the show. So I don't actually know what I had, but I was told bronchitis.
It was also 2017, so we didn't have COVID yet. It was just kind of like, you're fine.
Yeah, it was very much.
But yeah, we were on the same.
That sounds like enough to bring you together.
Yeah.
You survive that. You know what I mean? You're solid.
And she also needed me around to teach her to edit. So there was that as well.
You're still, I wasn't using you to learn how to edit. That's not the only reason.
She'd come in crying, like, I don't know how to use this computer.
Shut up. That's not true. It was true.
But it's true, but it's not, yeah.
But I learned.
Or like, there was this one great moment where she's like, I don't know how to make a bloody stabbing moment. And we like
that's when I was sick. I was like in your room like pontificating about how to do the stabbing scene.
I was like grabbing a bag and trying to fill it with fake blood and see if we could like stab into it and do it. And like and there was cameras on us and yet they didn't put that on the show. That to me was like one of those great moments of like trying to figure out how to do something.
A practical
with nothing.
Effect. Yeah.
So what did you settle on in the end?
I ended up using a straw. We just squirted blood at her from off screen.
Yeah, she found in the edit where like you see the hand come up and then stab down into the chest, and then blood hits the face.
It was like a boom, boom, boom edit, so it worked out. And that's honestly served as inspiration for me for another short that like there's a big, huge stabbing scene in my last short, and I had a practical effects person just like spraying blood at me while I was stabbing, and it works really well. I love it. So I love practical effects.
I don't know, man, there's not blood splashing on a wall will never not impress me. I love it. I love it in every movie I see it in. It can be the worst movie, but if there's a shot of blood spraying the wall, I'm just like, okay, well, you got me there. I liked it.
I remember watching that Spartacus TV show and thinking, this is a decent show, but they CGI'd the blood, and that was just bad.
Yeah.
No, I love some good practical nasty gore.
It's beautiful. It's so pretty too. Like that bright red blood. There's nothing like it. Like Tarantino blood is what I call it.
Chunky. I like my blood chunky.
He likes it chunky. I like it bright red.
I like it as chunky as you can make the blood. Gross. That's all I care about.
Oh my God. Oh man. So you always, if you can, go for the practical rather than, CGI and all of those kind of things.
If I can.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I do really love mixing practical and digital as much as I can. There's a lot of, I like to do very subtle digital effects. Like there's probably 40 digital effects in Little Lucha and the Big Deal, and you'd probably never know it.
Really?
Because I had dust in shots, I had a little bit of smoke, I had a light like flare happening in some parts. I add like little glowing to just little moments, or I add a sparkle in someone's eye, like tiny little practical things that Greywood's plot doesn't have a single shot through the whole movie that doesn't have some digital effect in it, whether it's light leaks or flies in the background.
I think also low budget digital effects can really help it elevate something. But you got to be really tasteful about it.
I think you have to be tasteful. And like blood is one of those things where I think liquid in general is so hard to recreate. I mean, I just watched a movie on the plane where I was like, why did you do this digital? Like there has to have been a practical way to do this. It was like sucking a bottle that in space. It's called ISS, whatever. Yeah, anyway, they're sucking a bottle and it was obviously a digital bottle. And I'm like, why did you do that? Like it should have been because they wanted to look spacey and like kind of floaty. And like, I just don't like that.
Yeah.
It's interesting because your background's an animator, right? So
yeah, my background's in animation. I use a lot of the stuff I learned in animation in my movies, like the little effects I learned throughout the years in school. That's a lot of the stuff I've just tried. I mean, I'll seriously write for an effect that I know I can do. Like I learned how to do tentacles in a visual effects class for whatever reason, and then I ended up putting tentacles in a bunch of my movies because it's just fun for me to play with tentacles in movies because I know how to do them with stop motion and digital and kind of composite them in, and I think they look fun.
Yeah, tentacles I associate with you for sure.
Do you?
It's like a Josh Stifter thing.
Yeah, I love them. I love it. Which is funny because like I can't think of like a reason why I like tentacles like in it besides the fact that
you're good at using it.
Right? I learned how to use them and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna do this, and subtly it's never like, what's that called? Like Japanese tentacle porn style. It's like where there's like tons of them coming out of everywhere. Yeah. Whatever. Always like very subtle and simple. I think it's from Power Rangers, honestly. I loved seeing just like wiggly arms in Power Rangers as a kid, and now I'm like, I want to make my own wiggly arms.
The quote of the podcast.
Yep.
Put it on my gravestone.
Made his own wiggly arms.
He loved wiggly arms.
Yeah, ironic you got eaten by an octopus. What was that?
I'm moving, and I'm also like way behind you. So
you trapped in the back corner here.
What was the hardest part of Little Lucha and the Big Deal?
I think just the pre-production of making it happen. Like honestly, once it happened, it was so fluid that we never had to really. I mean, maybe like the Seed and Spark campaign we did was pretty challenging. Yeah. I really don't like doing stuff like that. Begging for money is not my strong suit. So that was kind of difficult. But honestly, I think the hardest part was just pulling the trigger and saying, "Hey, it's time to do this thing." Everything else was fun.
Yeah. Once we got on set, it was like he said, it was just like gravy. Like everything fell together. It was very, very copacetic. Like it was such a good experience that it's hard to think about something that was hard, honestly.
Acting towards the wall without an actor across from me. Oh, that was really hard. We experimented a little bit. And at one point, Scarlet got behind the camera while I was doing my like dinner scene performance. Yeah. And like, I could not keep the line straight because I was just acting towards a wall and it felt so unnatural and weird. And then the second she got back on camera, I could spit the lines out just fine. And I was like, I can't do that. It gave me a big respect for the like people who act with a tennis ball on a green tennis ball on a screen and they're pretending they're acting with a dragon. Like
I felt so bad because I couldn't just pop back in because the camera was all set up. So I was like,
and I was kind of in a zone at that point where I was like trying to get him. Like, no, I got this.
But it really worked in the edit. It's great.
And I knew I was doing enough. I was editing it in my head as I was doing it. And I'm like, okay, I know if I get these 2 lines, I'll be good. And then I would go back and I'd be like, well, I'll add this, I'll redo this one and then add this one. And I could kind of figure out how it would be edited. But I was definitely not a one-take wonder for that one. But the funny thing is when we did the scene outside and I have a big monologue, I could crush it. And I don't know what the difference, I mean, the difference was that I just didn't have someone to act with.
Interesting.
I'm not like that.
Like, with those kind of scenes, there's sometimes you just slot someone else in. You know what I mean?
You let you have a stand-in, but we had such a small crew that there was no one to have in it in that moment, and it also was a very, that's the reason why we do these shorts, is to experiment, and that was kind of one of those experimental moments to see what it would be like.
I think it was also the close-up angle we were trying to get of you made it so that the camera had to go where a person was.
It was where you would be, so you would have been like back of the head in front of the camera. It was just the better shot was if we were kind of almost getting her perspective.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Always learn something new. Learn
just like for fun.
Yeah, it wasn't like, I'm not going to be in this shot. You're going to do this on your own, Stifter.
Exactly. I wasn't putting you through some like weird challenge.
Like, how easy do you find writing dialogue? Because I really thought the dialogue in this film was great. Like the interactions and those moments, like with the little girl and the mum, just all of those things really work so well.
I think the cool thing was this was 3 people who know each other really well, writing on the same project kind of for each other. So I wrote the initial script for Scarlet and I, and then she wrote the script and was like, I think I would do it more like this, and you would do it more like this. And then when it went to Dan, he was like, I know how you guys really act around each other. I have an outsider perspective, and he was able to tweak it and make it fun. And then at the same time, like, you get on set in that moment and you just kind of improvise some fun dialogue too. And I think a lot of it was like this isn't dialogue, but the like going after the egg moment. That was just like me actually trying to stab an egg.
Okay.
And like all of the there was so much stuff that was just me trying to make Scarlet laugh.
That's a good example of something I saw afterward that like I don't think anyone else will notice, but if you look closely, just like a little fun fact. When Josh is doing that and the camera's on his hand, you can see my stomach in the background moving because I'm laughing.
I never noticed that.
My stomach is like going crazy because I'm like cracking up, but it's really funny.
I mean, that's the hardest part. We wasted so many takes because we're laughing the entire time.
There was I could not. I was like crying of laughter at some point. It was my fault. I remember there's like in that diner scene. There's like I think it was like half an hour that I couldn't get it together, but then I finally did. But it was so fun.
And it makes the character fun. Like all of the takes of Lucha being like, you know, like the big moments that I have were to make, even the like, when we're outside and I say, bring it on, you big bitch.
Oh yeah,
like that was a surprise at her. And she just like burst out laughing when I said it. And it made it in because it's so too funny not to use.
I also will say, as an outsider who's like read a lot of Josh's other scripts, like you and Dan have like such a cool, interesting, specific style of dialogue that's like, it's just very specific. And I think that definitely made its way into Little Lucha. Like there's something, I don't even know how to describe it. There's something like casual about it, but also heightened at the same time.
Yeah.
So I love,
I mean, you've hung out with Dan and I. You know, it's basically the way we talk to each other most of the time. We're always just trying to like one up each other to make each other laugh. Mm-hmm. And it's this back and forth constantly with the two of us. 2 people who have known each other for over 30 years now. 32 years we've known each other. So like we know what each other are thinking before we say it. And now, like with texting, Dan and I text all day long. We're essentially writing dialogue all day long. So a lot of the stuff we put into it is just stuff we write back and forth. And a script can be much more, it's not like you sit down in the writer's room and do it. It's just like, I'll send him a line and be like, I thought of this today. Isn't this stupid? And he'll be like, yeah, let's put that in the script. And that's like constantly how we work.
And I think like you and Dan know each other for over 30 years, like all that. It translated really well because these characters also have known each other pretty much their whole lives. And like that very much plays out on screen, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely. You really do get like that's the thing. It really did feel like 80s wrestling
Oh yeah.
because there is a certain flow in 80s wrestling that you don't get today.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The way you deliver the lines and the characters and all of that kind of thing, you know what I mean? And it kind of felt that bombasticness kind of flowed from the script, which was super fun.
Yeah, I really hope that it felt like a wrestling match. I remember watching Uncut Gems and being like, oh my God, this is a basketball game. Like the ups and downs of Uncut Gems is like really a basketball game that's coming down to that final literal shot and the team loses and you're just left like devastated like a basketball game. And that's what I really wanted this to feel like, is like the ebb and flow of a wrestling match. And the drive off at the end on the motorcycle to me was just like the perfect walk off after a win. It was that moment of like, we get that last moment while the announcer is going like, can you believe it? They're going to carry on to another week. And hopefully the audience wants to tune in next week is the concept in wrestling. From us, it was like, hopefully they want to see more of these characters.
Yeah.
No, that was super irritating. That because I forgot how long it was. And we get to that bit, I'm like, okay, what's next? And then it was just like credits. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I was like, what happens now? Come on.
Every screening we've had, every screening I've showed to friends and family, they've been like, it's ended and just the credits start to roll and they go, but what about Chicago? Every time everyone goes, but what about Chicago?
What about Chicago? I'm like, give us some money and we'll show you Chicago.
Like, once it finished, I'm thinking this could work as like a TV series. It could work as a film. Like, I think there's so much. Like, you could do comic books. Like, there's so much you could do with this. It's fantastic. Like, what are those thoughts of potentially continuing?
We would love to do a TV show. We have some like stuff ready to go for a TV show.
We have like a pitch Bible ready with episode ideas and sort of a breakdown of what it would be as a like 8-episode. Because when we did it, that was like the hype, was like the 8-episode mini series on Netflix. Mm-hmm. And now it's sort of branched out where there's pretty much everything is happening at this point. And I would love to see it as like 8 40-minute episodes I think you could tell a really great story in 8 40-minute episodes with these characters.
And I like love their backstory and I want people to know their backstory, and like and we have it all figured out. So we just need funding and a studio and let's go. Talk to your friends, Kevin.
And we got to do it before my son gets too old, because he played Little Lucha in the flashback scene, and I would love to have him actually play that character.
Yeah, that'd be so good.
Or I mean, maybe he plays like an older. Like, if he gets older, he can just be like an older flashback scene.
Wouldn't that be awesome if I had Raffy play?
Yeah. Raffy's his youngest.
Raffy's my youngest. He's 7. Have him play the little one. So he'd be like 9 or 10, but he could still be pretty little. And then the older one would be like a teenager, and right when he sprouts up, so we could get teen. Let's do it.
We have it ready.
Sold.
Oh man, like, did you go to any like pro wrestling like camp to kind of learn moves and just that kind of ringmanship?
I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, practiced like in my living room, and
we were sending each other.
Yeah, we did. That's right. We sent each other YouTube videos. But I also am a huge wrestling fan. I still watch it. I watched when I was a kid through the Attitude Era, and I grew up with my grandpa would tape all of the WrestleManias, and he'd watch them over and over again. So I'd sit with my grandpa and watch WrestleMania. I mean, WrestleMania 3 is the masterpiece. I've seen it probably 1,000 times. My grandpa had that tape like in the VCR at any given moment. And so but I got back into wrestling like 3 years ago when I moved to Atlanta, because Daniel never got out of wrestling. And he got really into AEW when it started up, and got me into it later. And I've been watching, I mean, like literally it's on right now, and I'm like, or in 20 minutes, and I'm like, oh, I can't believe I'm missing it. Like I'm sweating just thinking of the fact that I'm not going to see it live. But I'm kidding. But I will watch it tonight.
Sorry, Josh. I would have scheduled this a different time if I knew.
I have it up on my phone right here. But I'm like really obsessed. In fact, to catch up before today, I had been on vacation before this, and I watched 3 episodes yesterday. That's 6 hours of wrestling in a day. So that's how into it I am. But I watched a lot, and then we got there to the day that we were going to be wrestling in the ring, and I had only talked to Ricky Norin, who was playing the wrestler that I was up against.
Yeah.
And he's an extreme wrestler. He literally had a match that I think it was New York Times did a whole piece on, where he was in New York and wrestled in like this open warehouse where they just wrestled around the room, like through the audience, and he was just covered in blood. Like it's insane. Look it up. Look up
extreme wrestler.
He's an extreme wrestler. So I was looking at pictures. Dan was sending me pictures of him, and he's like, "This is the guy you're wrestling with." And there's Ricky Norin like breaking a glass tube over a guy's head, and like barbed wire around his arm, punching a guy. And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm going to die." So I got there the day of, and I was like, "Hello, Ricky. Nice to meet you." He's like, "Well, how much do you know about wrestling?" And I'm like, I watch it. And then he's like, he throws some stuff at me and starts joking with me. And I was like, I hope he's joking, because he's going to kill me. And then I got in the ring, and I'm like, dude, I don't know anything. He's like, I got you. Let's figure this out. He taught me a handful of moves. We worked it out and practiced some stuff. But the nice thing is we were filming in like 120 or 240 frames a second. We were filming like slow-mo.
Slower.
So the camera could only run in these bursts of like 3 seconds at a time. And so we did everything in like beats, where I was like, okay, now like he's gonna show me how he can pick me up. So he showed me how he could like pick me up and throw me down, and he showed me how he could, throw a fake punch and I could take it. And he pulled me across the mat, and we just had fun like trying out all these different things. And
like shot it all, basically just like shot as you were learning. We shot, and some of it is like the first time I did it. And I was really impressed with Ricky, because he was so I mean, not that I expected a wrestler just to come in and like be mean and horrible, but he was like so kind and so accommodating, and just like, I mean, and I think this is what makes a good wrestler, is like they're very, very like safe, and like this is how you do it, not to die. And so he was amazing. He was a big part of why it all worked.
Yeah, it gave me a really big respect for like the dance that is wrestling, because he showed me how like I can be being choked out and make it look like I'm being choked out, but I am totally in control of everything. I have the control over him in that moment. And there was one point where he literally like made me black out. It obviously not literally, but he made me black out, and people like around the ring were like, "Is he okay? Is he okay?" And I was like, "Yes, I did it. I actually did it."
It's funny because you've done work for Trauma.
I have.
One of your Trauma colleagues, Zach Amico, wrestles as well. Yeah,
Zach is great.
Yeah, I think genre filmmaking and wrestling kind of go together.
Weird costumes, fun moments, like zaniness. It's all crazy. Nothing has to be based in reality.
Suspension of disbelief.
We're all just allowing for that to happen, and that's what I love about wrestling, and it's why I really felt compelled to make this project.
Yeah, I had really wanted. Honestly, I also grew up, 90s wrestling and Macho Man and Hulk, and that whole era was like, how could you not love it as a kid? Me and my brother would like, jump off the couch and like, but when I saw when Glow came out, I was like, why am I not on this show? I was like, if they can do it. I can do it. These are actresses. You know what I mean? So I was super inspired to do that, and I had wanted to do that for a long time. And you wrote Little Lucha and the Big Deal, the first iteration before Glow came out.
Oh yeah, way before.
And so I was like, oh, we need to make a wrestling movie because it's trending. You know, that always happens. I feel like the zeitgeist is just like.
And I'm everything. The opposite, where I'm like, it's trending now. Peace. I'm not going to do
Never
it.
Doing it
again.
And then it took me getting into wrestling and realizing how like fickle the audience is to be like, you know what? You can do this anytime.
Whenever. Yeah, it's timeless.
The thing that I find odd about wrestling now to back in the day, because you had Macho Man, Hulk, Warrior, Legion of Doom, right? Characters like that. It seems now you've got characters like Steve Smith. It's just like, sometimes it doesn't seem like that big, you know what I mean? Like larger than life name. It's just like, it's Todd Tony. Like, oh no.
Yeah, I think that speaks to like the era too. Like I think everything was heightened in the 80s for sure. And like in film, especially genre film, we love theatrics. We love a heightened environment. We love larger than life moments. And like, that's why we make these movies. And I think that society right now, Josh and I have talked about this before, like wants everything to be real and wants everything to be like at their fingertips, and they want to be able to know exactly what's happening and be able to experience it, moment to moment. So I don't think people have as much patience and as much like openness to these like heightened characters.
I think that's part of it. I mean, I'll say right now, AEW to me is like, because it's so many people coming from Lucha Underground, which was like basically a callback to the 80s. Like Robert Rodriguez made this wrestling show that was just like crazy, like just crazy, weird soap opera stories and like so fun. And like he had digital graphics happening, like lightning would strike the set and stuff like that. And yeah, it was awesome. And then AEW came. AEW is kind of a lot of those people that moved over from there. And there's big characters that, like I tune into WWE, and it's Daniel and I talk about this all the time. I try to watch it every once in a while, and I'm just like, I can't tell. Like the only difference, especially in the women's division right now, is like their hair color. Like every woman looks exactly the same, but different hair color. Whereas like AEW, it's like every body type, every character, like every ethnicity. It's so diverse that the women's scene is like one of my favorite things in the world right now. And then on top of that, you've got like, they'll just do you've got all these Japanese wrestlers are coming over from New Japan because Tony Khan bought New Japan. So it's like all of these crazy names that they are, all these crazy styles coming together, where you have Lucha, like modern day pro wrestling from America, which is what everyone thinks of when they think of pro wrestling. But like Lucha wrestling is completely different, high flying, what that's like. So you've got that mixed with American, mixed with Japanese, which is this like no sell crazy Superman style, where like a guy would literally take a punch to the face. Literally take a punch to the face and try not to react. It's so like they'll sit and chop at each other's chest until their chests are bloody and they try not to move. It's a completely opposite style of Lucha or American. Like it's so diverse. So seeing all of these styles come together in AEW, it's like, for me, it's awesome because I can watch it and be like, how did he learn to wrestle like Japanese style? Like how did this guy who's been doing American wrestling for 20 years suddenly figure out Japanese style? Because they're so different and I just love it.
Yeah, it's, I've listened to a lot of old school wrestlers talk about the come up, right? And then they'd talk about the first time they went over to Japan. They're like, and that was different. You know what I mean? It was just like,
so awesome.
They were trying to kill me. I wasn't expecting it.
There's Hulk Hogan wrestling in Japan. There's a Japanese Hulk Hogan match that if you can find it is chef's kiss awesome. There's so many great moments of like, Daniel just sent me Stone Cold wrestling in Japan. And I was like, I never saw this guy move like this before. It was totally changed my perspective on him. Of course, he was like,
I love Stone Cold.
24 or 25. Like, it was not the Stone, like, he barely looked like Stone Cold, but it's still like he was trying different stuff. And I love that about wrestlers learning different styles.
Was it akin to his, because in his early days, he was in that tag team with, oh God, I cannot remember the tag, but it was kind of like a Midnight Express Rockers type of gimmick.
Okay.
Right, and so I think he had hair back then.
He did have hair in this Japanese match, yeah.
Yeah, it was completely different. And then when he reinvented himself as Stone Cold, it completely changed. The style changed, everything changed. It was like different. It was crazy. Man, I might have to look at AEW because I've looked at
I'm so addicted.
I've looked at WWE and I've just been a bit like, I don't know about this shit.
Yeah, I can't get into it. I try every once in a while, or I just have Daniel send me matches that are good. Because every once in a while they'll have something awesome happen. But AEW, it's pretty much every week. After I got into it, there was no stopping me. I can't. It's my church.
Though, I'm not sure where it shows in the UK. That's the thing about a lot of this stuff. People talk about it and you're like, that sounds great. And you'll be like, it's not over here.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But the costumes, how long did that take to kind of work out what the big deal was going to be rocking and what Little Lucha was? The mask is such a huge thing of luchadorian wrestling. You know what I mean? The different styles and oh god, was it Psychosis that had that mask with like the horn bits coming out, which was like bonkers. You know what I mean? So yeah, how long did it take to work out like the costumes and the looks?
Well, I had actually bought a mask in Mexico that I was going to use, and then right before, a week before, Daniel was like, "Nah, let's make our own. You should have the upside down cross on it. You should do something that's a little more unique to you." And my wife actually made that. Did Jenny make the cape too? Jenny made the cape, and she did it. There's some pictures floating around online. She did it all in an afternoon, put the whole thing together, and then put the LL on the back of that jacket. And actually, Daniel sent that jacket. He bought that jacket, and all of a sudden, this sports coat shows up at my house. I'm like, "What is this?" And Daniel's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I sent a coat to your house. I thought maybe Jenny could put something on the back of it." And this was a day before I was supposed to be flying out. And so Jenny designed the LL and put it on there, and
she also put the wings on your boots, right?
And I had bought those boots, which were hard to find. Wrestling boots are not easy to find.
We really scoured for those.
Yeah, so we found those, and then Jenny put wings on the side of the boots, and but we tried a bunch. I have a bunch of pictures that I tried a whole green outfit first, and then I tried this blue getup, and we ended up with the black and gold, and I think it really worked out.
Yeah, and once he had the black and gold, I was like, okay, there's some punk rock about it. I wanna go in a direction that feels akin to that. And I knew I wanted the big deal to be a little bit Ric Flair inspired, and I happen to have a lot of feather robes, so I had that robe already, and I was like, red will look great with black and gold. So I found that 80s zebra onesie, and then I already had the platform boots, and I was gonna wear wrestling boots. I had these old wrestling. I actually had these boots that were red and black, but the soles were fell off basically right before I went to Minnesota, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm wearing these platforms, and I wasn't in the ring in the movie, so it worked perfectly. The platforms also gave me height. I think the big deal, she is the big deal, and so I wanted as much height and as much presence as possible. The wig adds like 4 inches, the heels added like 4 inches. So I cobbled it together with stuff I already had. The only thing I bought was the leotard, and I had like a patent leather headband, and everything else was mine. I had this like 80s punk belt, this like red studded belt that with chains on it. And I was like, there's like a touch of that sort of the upside down cross with Lucha, because they're like very close. So I wanted there to be a callback to each other.
Yeah.
And the running joke has been that the biggest diva on the set was her wig because it rained, and we had to like always be like carrying the wig around, trying to keep it out of the rain and like make sure it's over here away from everything. And
yeah, because it was day 1 and we shot for 2 days, right? 3 days. Well,
we shot for 3 days,
3 days, yeah.
But you needed it needed to look freshest on the 3rd day.
Exactly, because the 3rd day was the first scene. So
okay,
it rained on day 1 of shooting, which was a later scene, and I was like, I can't get the wig wet. Like, we have to figure something out so that she doesn't get wet, because she was curly and hairsprayed to oblivion, and the water would have ruined it. So we had literally like our crew of 5 people basically like rigged a tent thing to go over us while we were outside. It was really funny.
Yeah, our setup was so next level for being a no budget thing. Like while we were filming some stuff, we had like one of my good friends, Nathan Strauss, who's sort of become my AD, I guess, for lack of a better term. We had him out there like setting up this whole garbage bag like tent so that we could film underneath it, but it had to be high enough that we wouldn't see it in the shots. So it was a whole professional setup.
It was wild.
Like, did you keep any of this stuff? Like, special features via bonus material?
Oh yeah. If you follow my patreon.com/Flush Studios, I've posted a ton of behind the scenes stuff. Back when we shot, I was posting a lot of it. So you have to go back like a year. But more stuff came out. We did some stuff for Seed and Spark. I did some behind the scenes videos. And if you go to the Little Lucha and the Big Deal Instagram, there's like a handful of behind the scenes things on there.
Yeah.
We had so much
fun.
I mean, that's the beautiful thing about the digital era is like everyone's taking pictures, everyone's shooting video. So at the end, we were just like, everyone throw everything you have onto this Google Drive account, and we're going to share everything. So, and there's still stuff I haven't gone through yet.
Yeah.
No, that's great, because, you say that, but not a load of people actually show it or use it to kind of promote the film and build the interest.
Right. I think there's 2 reasons. I think one reason is people fear showing how
the sausage is made.
Yeah, how the sausage is or how scrappy it is. Yeah. Like, you want people to think you had some big production. You don't want them to think your motorcycle shot was your brother-in-law sitting in the back of his Jeep while we had tied lights onto the back of it, and we were sitting on a motorcycle on a trailer just driving up and down a street in Atlanta. Like, literally just like trying to get it as people drove by honking and waving at us. We're like, please don't honk because we did not get a permit. But like, I think that's part of it. And I also think a lot of times people just don't think about it. You get on set and you're like, everyone's going, everyone's so in the moment that the amount of fun we had inspired people to pull out their camera and be like, this is hilarious. I got to get a video of this. But for me, a lot of times I get on set and I'm just so stressed to get things done that I don't even think like, we got to get behind the scenes. It's just like, we just got to get this fucking thing done.
Yeah, this was probably, I have like 2 I have some behind the scenes of my short before this, like photos, but it's like 1 roll of like actual film, and like that's it. Because I was, when you're that was also the beauty of collaborating and co-directing. I've never done that before. And so Josh and I were able to, I think it was like a more relaxed atmosphere because we knew we had each other's back. Whereas when I'm directing and acting in something, you don't have time to think about the BTS because you're like, I just got to get this shot in 2 days,
Yeah, when you're on an indie film like this and you're doing a bunch of different parts of it, it's so easy to just like kind of fold in on yourself and be so in your head. But when you have to have that moment of being in your head, like with the 2 of us, it just became this thing where it's like, okay, I'm suddenly nervous and in my head and trying to figure my shit out. you take over set. And then Scarlet would go be, talk with people and keep things going. And then the opposite would happen where she would, have to get into makeup and have to get into character where she'd have to cry and she'd have to go away. And I would be like, let's go be fun. Like, hey, Dan, let's do whatever. And so like funny things would happen. So that the crew is always like really enjoying themselves in that sort of,
atmosphere.
That atmosphere.
Yeah. I think it's like you kind of need someone completely independent to kind of shoot stuff, right? To capture the real essence of it. There's been a few kind of Netflix rom-coms, and then during the end credits, there's all of these supposed hilarious moments that seem real scripted and false.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is just like, that's not it. But like, I remember James Samuels with the Book of Clarence is one of the first times I saw someone really utilize a lot of the behind the scenes stuff on their socials, and it really, told a fun story, and then kind of got you jazzed to see the film.
Yeah, I also feel like I learned that from Josh a little bit, like not to be so precious about not letting people see this or that. I didn't ever say anything about it with this movie, but with my other movies, I've been very like, we're going to release one image at a time, and it's going to be this close, and it's only going to be an eyeball.
I'm so the opposite. I'm like
the opposite.
I'm going to show everyone
everything.
Yeah. Like I want people, I would love it if the whole world could watch my set live. Like I have no fear of failure in that sense. I think that's a big part of it, is people fear that someone's going to be like, that's not the camera you should be using, or though that's not how you do lighting. And I'm like, it's art. You do whatever you want. And I also I like to look like an idiot every once in a while. So if I can look like an idiot, fine. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah, it just like, for me, it just helped me feel like it's okay to share I'm very much old school in the way that like, especially before TikTok and Instagram, it was like, I don't want to see how the sausage is made. I don't want to see like something before the like beautiful product, you know what I mean? And that I don't think is like, it doesn't serve us now in this age, especially. But that was my like whole thing, was like, no, I'm going to like share the beautiful, polished, finished product. And that's what people are going to see. And I really learned through this experience that like, it's so much fun to share so much more than that, and people love right now, especially in the TikTok era, and people love to see how the sausage is made. That's like what they'd rather see. So
I learned that on Greywood's plot more than anything, where I had a lot of people starting the movie and not finishing it who didn't know that the movie takes a dark turn 40 minutes in. And, they start and they'd be like, oh, I get it. It's like a Clerks comedy thing that like references horror, not knowing that like they'd really love it if they stuck it out. Like, yes, I make you work a little bit to get to it, but it's worth the time and effort.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of movies take that time and effort anymore. Now it's like, you got to get them in the first 5 minutes or you don't have them. And I'm like, I hate movies like that. You don't have to get me in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I will stick with you for a long time.
I love a slow burn.
I love a slow burn. And so,
oh my gosh, yeah. I think as long as it's compelling, you know what I mean? Nothing like, I don't need explosions and craziness at the beginning. If the characters are interesting, I'm with it. And I think that was something that was really interesting about your film, because you have all this stuff going down, and then when we do the like the hours before, right, and we're following the big deal, like that stuff then got super like intimate and heartfelt, and you're just like, oh shit, okay. Oh man, like, oh, this is happening to her. And it was just like, we just took this turn, which was really great. You know what I mean? But you wouldn't know it was gonna take that flip from the beginning of it. You know what I mean? But it's just like, it's fine to do that. You know what I mean? That's really interesting. But some people just want bam, 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 and all of this kind of thing.
They just want, a lot of people want comfort right now, and that's fine. I get that. I understand the comfort movie as much as anyone, but I also like to be shocked and surprised. And with this one, I wanted to like kind of surprise people, but not in the sense of just like all of a sudden someone's going to be hit with a baseball bat in the back of the head and turned into a dog man. Like it wasn't that sort of a thing, but like I still wanted to surprise people in our own way. And so that's why I think it goes from like wrestling ring to kind of funny little moment to kind of sad to like really goofy, and then like kind of this weird fun sibling rivalry sort of moment, and then ends on like kind of a you want to see more. That's literally what a wrestling match is. Like every match to me starts with like here's who we're seeing in the opening, introduction. And then it starts kind of slow. And then halfway through, you get this moment where you're like, oh, is this where it's going? And then it kind of changes. It goes to commercial break and whatever. And then you come back and it like, then they start hitting hard and something crazy happens. And I love that about wrestling. And you get it all in 14 minutes, just like a short film. So that was kind of my hope, was to do the 14-minute match in one movie.
Ah, right. That's the time. Yeah, like there was so many great, like, oh my gosh, Scarlet, your interactions with the little girl.
Oh, thank you.
I just, those were so fantastic.
Thank you.
And it was just like the first bit, and you're kind of like, oh, because you feel it from your point of view, but then you get it from their point of view.
Yeah, you're also like, oh, they don't know what she went through, so what,
Yeah. But then when we get the call back, oh, that was just perfect, because you didn't know that was coming. You know what I mean? You kind of hope there might be something, but yeah, when you see it, it's just like, oh, that's perfect. That's nice. That's great.
Thank you. Yeah, that was, I say this in like every conversation about this movie, but it's really one of the most heartfelt things I've ever made. I think it's very human. I think the big deal is having she's at a fork in the road, right? And like, I think we've all been there as artists, as humans. Like, you get to a spot where something's really hard and you decide whether you want to move forward or not. And I think that's why it's so, even for me, doing the scene, I was just like heartbroken, because I know what it feels. Everyone knows what that feels like, I think.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, no, it just, they're just full of these great moments. And these great moments, sometimes you'll watch something and there's great moments, but that's all it is. It doesn't really come together as a whole, but this really comes together so well.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? I want a series. You need to
we'll do our best. I do too. I would love to keep playing this character. Honestly, she was so fun and cool to play, and I would love to explore that more.
How far have you got it mapped? Like, you talked about a season, but
doesn't he have
it go longer?
Yeah, so I mean, Dan has, in our pitch Bible, I think Dan has
like 3 seasons.
3-season arc, but he also has the first 8 episodes broken down into what would happen in each of those 8 episodes. So we have a roadmap of what it could be, but it's also one of those things where like you don't know what it's going to be. Like if all of a sudden someone saw it and was like, we see this as a feature film.
Yeah,
like
of course
I would love to do it as a feature as well. It's just one of those projects where we're hoping to get people to get eyes on it as we hit the festival scene. Hopefully people enjoy it and we see what happens from there.
Yeah, and I think like the point is too that like there is so much there. So if someone wanted to do a feature, we could do a feature, and if someone wanted to do a show, we have the show ready to go. So there's so much there in that world with those characters, that in their history. It just like I just would love to expand it for sure in whatever way we could. I think it would also make a really cool like adult cartoon.
Yeah.
like Big
Oh.
Mouth style.
Yeah, I mean, like all three could work concurrently. You know what I mean? Telling different aspects
Yeah.
of it. Because like you know what I mean? Like you could do the animated one, could be, you know, the Japanese or the Mexican lucha libre, right? And then the film could be the flashback, and then the series is modern day going into your journeys and your stories, and you come to the UK and you find a great British wrestler.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I love it. I love it.
Oh man, no, I think yeah, this was fantastic. I love having the opportunity to watch such interesting stuff and then have great conversations. So you guys just made my day. It was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Hey, no worries at all. How can people keep track of everything you're doing and the film and the screenings, festivals, all of that jazz?
We have an Instagram for the movie. I think it's at Little Lucha and the Big Deal.
Yeah, I think it's Little Lucha X
the Big Deal. That's right. Yeah, Little Lucha X the Big Deal. And you can follow me at Flush Studios. I don't even know anymore.
Yes.
I think I'm at Flush. Well, because I also have an at Josh Stifter.
Yeah.
So
it's Flush Studios.
At Flush Studios is my Instagram. At Josh Stifter on X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And then
I'm on Instagram at Scarletini, 1 T, 2 N's. And I really keep my Instagram pretty current. I talk about what I'm working on, and that's kind of the best way to stay up to date with me. I also have a website, very easy, scarletmoreno.com, but I don't update it as much as I should.
Same. I have joshstifter.com. I rarely change it. So I have to get better at that. But it's hard when we're in the social media era and everything's so easily updated on social media. And then you can follow me at patreon.com/flushstudios. That's where I show the most behind the scenes and every project I work on, and you get to see the fun that goes into filmmaking, ask me any questions you want to ask, and see all the projects before anyone else.
Tremendous. And don't you have a podcast?
I do have a podcast. The podcast is called Low Budget Rebels. I talk to low budget filmmakers about what they do. And same, like you said, literally I do it because it's so awesome to be able to watch like an indie movie. It forces me to go out of just like the Netflix box and hunt for other filmmakers, and then find someone to talk to about their movie. And, you know, a lot of times independent filmmakers, they're not getting on big podcasts. They're not getting, you know, they don't have people coming to them asking if they would come on the show. So it's an opportunity for me to like have conversations with people who really want to just talk about their projects, and it inspires the hell out of me. So that's why I do it. The name may be changing in the near future, but right now it's Low Budget Rebels Podcast.
Awesome. Well, people, you will be able to find all of those links on the website. So make sure you go and support Scarlet and Josh, because God, they make good shit, right?
Thank you.
See more Little Lucha and the Big Deal in all those formats. So yeah, guys, thank you so much. I hope that you have a tremendous time tomorrow at the premiere, and you stop by once, you know what I mean, you get that deal to make more. And your future projects, you know, whatever other projects you're working on, the door is open. Please come back.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, tremendous. Okay, Scarlet Moreno, Josh Stifter, Little Lucha, and the Big Deal. People, go represent. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.